Turkey's defense ministry says a ballistic munition launched from Iran, which crossed Iraqi and Syrian airspace, was detected heading toward Turkey before being intercepted by NATO air and missile defense systems in the eastern Mediterranean. Debris actually fell in Hatay province, but officials say it was from the interceptor and not the Iranian missile itself, and that there weren't any casualties. Well, Ankara is now warning that it reserves the right to respond to any hostile action and is urging all sides not to widen the conflict. Apparently, they've called in the Iranian ambassador within Turkey, but the interception certainly raises the stakes for NATO, which is condemning the strike, but still hasn't committed to joining the U.S. and Israel in the fight against Iran. And joining us now is our security analyst, Yakov Lapin. Yakov, how significant is it that NATO assets actually intercepted a missile heading toward Turkish airspace? Do you think that this effectively is going to pull the alliance one step closer to direct involvement? Because obviously what we were hearing from NATO yesterday and also just, you know, several different European nations in regards to the strikes that we also saw in Cyprus was perhaps a lack of interest in actually getting involved.
I don't think it's going to bring NATO one step closer because what is NATO? NATO is composed of the individual member states. And at the end of the day, I don't see any desire among the non-American member states of NATO, the governments. They will be making the decision to get involved in this war, which is a huge mistake on their part because Iran is obviously a threat to the entire world, but they seem very content on not getting involved in the war. By the way, according to reports, that missile was apparently heading for a base in Cyprus. That was its intended location, intended target, according to reports.
Well, but is that being perceived as a mistake by Turkey?
No, it's not. It's not a mistake by Turkey because the missile, threatened Turkish airspace. Mm-hmm. So right. Turkey, did what it had to do to protect its airspace. I think, the real significance here that this is probably the second time, if not more, during this war, that Cyprus, a European Union member state, is being targeted by Iran and previously by Hezbollah, by the Iranian terror axis. This is an EU member that's
right.
being
and
targeted.
And these are British bases that are not actually involved in U.S.-Israeli strikes.
Exactly right. And that's very, very significant. And this is exactly what Israel has been warning about, that Iran is a global menace and that it has no red lines and that it's fanatical and jihadist ideology. It has its sights set on the entire world, and really, this goes way beyond Israel. Here's the proof: it's attacking an EU member, and it looks like this missile that Turkey intercepted may have been designed to go to Cyprus rather than Turkey. Natasha, I also just want to draw your attention and that of the viewers. You mentioned this at the beginning of the broadcast, but I think it's worth pausing on the Iranian military compound that was struck today by the Israeli Air Force. This is remarkable. This is not a normal target. Let me just share with you who was based at this compound. Within this compound, it contained the headquarters of the IRGC, the Iranian Intelligence Directorate, the Basij, the Quds Force, the Internal Security Forces, cyber warfare headquarters, and the headquarters of the unit in internal security responsible for internal suppression. This is a vastly important nerve center in eastern Tehran. And what I've learned from an IDF official is that over 100 Israeli Air Force jets took part in striking the compound. They delivered over 250 munitions. So what I'm suggesting here is that this strike is not just another strike. This is yet another turning point in the war. This is a massively important strike, and it could significantly further weaken the Iranian terror regime.
All right. Well, Yakov, we're also seeing reports coming out that Israel strikes in Iran have killed thousands of Iranian soldiers amid the ongoing conflict. Obviously, we're seeing numbers by human rights activist groups within Iran citing that number at around 1,000. Of course, these are numbers that can't be verified. They also don't distinguish between IRGC members and civilians. But thousands is certainly more than the latest numbers that we've been seeing, which are at around 1,000. So interesting to know. But we're going to turn to our next story. We'll be coming back to you shortly.